What's happening, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Crash Bang Boom podcast, episode 257, in fact, and Happy New Year here in 2022. Today's guest is Mike Kadnar, who drums with So Hideous, Downfall of Gaia, the number 12 Looks Like You, and is also the owner of Silent Pendulum Records. Mike and I pick up from the last time we talked with canceled tours, new releases on the record label, the process of writing the new So Hideous record, None But a Pure Heart Can Sing, and a bunch more, so I hope y'all dig it. Today's episode is sponsored by my man Carson Gant, aka OneUpLoops.com. Carson and his team spent a preposterous amount of time recording over 400,000 shaker, tambourine, and hi-hat loops at every possible tempo and multiple feels with incredible mics and outboard gear for you to pick and choose. It's organized for you to find exactly what you need with just a few clicks, and everything feels and sounds incredible. You can sign up for free to check it out and gain full access to all 400,000 loops starting at just $5.99 a month. No download limits, whatever you want, whenever you want. New loops, one-shots, and drum breaks are being added weekly. So check it out, and that's OneUpLoops.com. Crash Bang Boom podcast can be found on iTunes Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Luminary, Google Play, Podbean, and Amazon Music Podcasts, to name a few. Feel free to check out the previous 250-plus episodes and give me a like and or a subscription and or a positive review, as the support is appreciated. So here we go. Mike Kadnar. Crash Bang Boom.
Crowds go mad with joy.
Yeah! All right, I'm here with Michael Kadnar, dropping off again for another episode. Presently playing with So Hideous, as well as Downfall of Gaia and number 12 Looks Like You. Kind of impressed that I got through all those band names. I didn't botch it. That was pretty good. I'm proud of myself. But man, last time we talked, man, you had invested in a Sprinter van. You were looking forward to touring with number 12 Looks Like You. You were getting your record label off the ground and playing with Downfall of Gaia. And fast forward a couple plus years later, and the world changed a little bit. So what did you find yourself doing in the absence of touring? And then we can kind of revert back and we can talk about how that tour went with number 12 Looks Like You, etc.
Yeah, it's good to see you again. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's been a while, but yeah, I mean, the pandemic hit, and I think every musician, every artist had to kind of figure out, what can I do now instead of doing my primary source of income.
Yeah.
It was touring. As we spoke last time, I kind of stepped away from giving lessons and I got the Sprinter. But as the pandemic escalated, got rid of the Sprinter and quickly realized, like, everyone wants physical media, me included.
Yeah.
If I can't go to Europe and tour with my favorite bands, then I'm going to buy records. I'm going to support them. I'm going to buy whatever they're releasing. Mm-hmm. So as I was doing that, then I started spending a lot more time with my record label, Silent Pendulum. And I was just pressing the whole number 12 catalog, some other local mathcore bands. And then as the pandemic continued over a year, I ended up doing Into the Moat. And that was licensed through Metal Blade, and then most recently Psyopus. So
right.
It's kind of where I went with the pandemic, and the only musical outlet I had really was I was approached by So Hideous, and they were in a similar situation as I was. It's like, let's just get in a room, let's play some music. I don't want to write it. I don't want to just be stuck at home. Let's play for the reason we started playing music, and that's to like be around people and create together.
Yeah, for sure. Crazy, man. And as well, I've got a buddy that owned, I say in past tense because he just sold his percentage of it, but he owned a record pressing company, and they were just swamped more so than ever during that because everybody was trying to press so much vinyl. Was that a problem, just even with delays and everything else of even getting that side of the vinyl option going with the record label?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been a lot of articles about it, and your buddy can probably attest to it as well. But all the plants are at capacity, over capacity.
Yeah.
So some plants are even turning away work. They're turning away big clients. Some of the plants I work with, they're getting approached by the majors and like, sorry, we don't have the people, we don't have the resources, the raw materials, any of that. So I mean, right now I'm working with 4 different plants in the US, Canada, and Czech Republic, and the lead times are still 6 to even 12 months when you place your order.
Oh my God.
So yeah, it definitely forced, I think, a lot of labels and a lot of artists to kind of reevaluate their business models, me included. So I am still doing some pre-orders. I'm trying to get rid of that part of the equation, but it's hard to tell a band like, hey, I love your record, but we're going to release this in 12 months. So you're going to have to sit here for a year.
Right.
So it's really complicated balance right now of like, oh, let me, release some classic albums on vinyl, like a first pressing or a repressing, but also trying to push the pre-orders with brand new, exciting bands.
Right, right. How did you stumble upon the release with So Hideous, man? That's such a crazy band, and some of the crazy guitar sweeps and sounds and stuff kind of sounds like a bit of a precursor to what Car Bomb would ended up doing, How did you end up hooking up with that recording and putting that out for with and or for them?
I mean, one of my visions and goals with the label was to press all the albums that I loved growing up on vinyl for the first time a lot of the time. So
Yeah.
Into the Moat, So Hideous, Arsonist, Get All the Girls, Number 12, Looks Like You. All those bands, I mean, I grew up listening to them, middle school, high school, college. I still have my CD booklet.
Uh-huh.
I used to keep in my car. So you had your burned CDs, your cracked CD cases.
Yep.
Basically, I want to bring that thing out and do a video or something, just showing the history of what I liked and where it ended up, where I get to talk to these bands, work with these bands. It's really nice. But basically, I reached out to Chris Arp, and I said, listen, there's a big demand for this. I have a lot of friends, myself included, who want to hear this on vinyl.
Yeah.
He gave me the blessing, and I, contacted Metal Blade. I'm also signed to Metal Blade, so that helps. So I talked to my contacts there and got the license. And 12 months later, I kept it, kind of under wraps. And all of a sudden, I'm like, guess what, everybody? Here it is. I have the vinyl at my house. Let's go.
Right. That's what you had to do, right? Given the lead time on that. You got to be like, I know that I physically have this in my house now. I can say it's here if you want it. 100%.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's wild, man. And I've been digging some of the vinyl color variants and stuff that you're doing on them too, which also enhances that kind of vinyl collecting experience for the heads that love those bands. It's such a cool option.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's been a bit of a renaissance the last few years, especially with a lot of the pressing plants and the actual people there pressing. And I think they've gotten a little bit of leeway, and also they're inspired to attempt things that have never been done before. I've seen pressings with gold leaf or, ripped up dollar bills, or they have liquid filled records now. So they got all sorts of amazing concepts going on. It's an exciting time in the industry for sure.
Absolutely, man. You mentioned getting together with the So Hideous guys. At the time when that started to first happen, were you still more north, kind of, I call it upstate. Of course, New York's a long state. It's not like you were all the way up to Canada, but you were north of like Brooklyn, for instance. So you started jamming with the So Hideous guys. I guess tell me a little bit about getting in there with them and working out old songs, new songs, everything in between.
Yeah, basically, I think it was the summer, right? Yeah, right after the pandemic hit. It was a few months. Everyone's in lockdown in the city, New York City and Brooklyn. And I get an email from Brandon, the founding member and guitarist and composer of So Hideous. And he's like, hey, we haven't been playing for 5 years, but I have a lot of songs, and I want you to compose them with me. I want to, meet up and let's just like sweat this out. So we met up, we had our masks on, we went to Astoria Soundworks, or there was another spot we went in Gowanus for a few times. And we just, once a month we're meeting, and he was presenting me riffs, and he was, sending me these long emails with like, oh, I want it to sound like Hans Zimmer, but if he went to Egypt, and then all of a sudden, like, Mark Guiliana's there, and he's doing this like, drum and bass groove. So the first emails was like, man, this sounds crazy. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Over a year later, I'm like, wow, I can't believe we actualized these seemingly bizarre emails into a cohesive piece of, musical work.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, what I've heard thus far of the last one that y'all put out just in December here, it definitely traverses a lot of territory. I mean, you've got strings, horns, it goes everywhere. It's pretty wild. So it's definitely diverse and again, the sort of territory that it covers. So, I mean, once you've got it sort of in a rehearsed form, it's still a matter of going into the studio and then nailing all of that. So I guess, what was that experience of actually going in and just recording all this then?
Honestly, it was one of the smoothest albums I think any of us have been involved in. We did work ahead of time. So, I mean, the older I get and the more experience we all have been accumulating, the more I'm into like making really serious demos, pre-production, programming. So we went in there with Logic sessions and stems and, demos of strings and horns and pianos already set up. So when I recorded drums, it was like, well, the songs were pretty well fleshed out. It wasn't like, let's write this in the studio.
Yeah.
So the drums went very smoothly, bass, guitar, everything, no problem. And then vocals they did in the West Coast because Chris was living in the West Coast at the time.
Gotcha.
In LA. And then strings came in. And my favorite part, honestly, was the horns because like the album's done. And you're like, you have an idea like, oh, this is pretty banging.
Yeah.
Got these like 3 New York City cats in there, and they come in at like 7 p.m. after we already had a long day, and they're just like, all right, cool. Like they had some whiskey. They're like, all right, let's do this. And then just one take. And Brandon tells them, oh, for this part, just like improvise. And we got some crazy, jazzy, authentic New York City vibes on this, and it was beautiful and fun.
Nice. Did you record the drums at Backroom Studios? Because I know the drum playthroughs that I've seen you on, and one of those songs is 11 minutes, which is crazy. That's a long time to not fuck something up somewhere along the line. But how did that? Is that where you recorded the drums?
Yeah, I mean, Kevin and I, we've have a long relationship at this point. We did last drums for Downfall of Gaia. We did number 12 Looks Like You there.
Yeah.
Black Table, Bereft. I mean, basically anything I play on anymore, I go to Kevin unless the founding members want a specific studio. But Kevin has been amazing. And yeah, so we did the whole album with Kevin except for vocals, and he also mixed and mastered the album.
Nice. Then it comes time to doing that playthrough that I was talking about, man. You were able to get that in one single take, man. 11 minutes. That's rough.
I don't know about one single take, but
yeah,
takes. But yeah, that was fun. I came in, I think, a month after the album was done, and we just set up mics again. My buddy Sean from Washed Up Media did the video work, and then I don't think Kevin actually didn't do the audio for the drum playthrough. It was his assistant Simon. Thicken, and he's great as well. Now he's starting to do his own albums and clients. So it's just a great studio, Backroom Studios in Rockaway, Jersey. And I mean, it's only like 45 or 60 minutes from New York City. So
right.
Get out of the city, and they have amazing tones and equipment, and they just know how to make albums sound great.
Absolutely, man. In that time of COVID and moving and everything else, man, did you sort of focus on any particular aspects of drumming within your own sort of practice regimen necessarily, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, basically my partner and I, we were in lockdown together. A funny story, like when COVID hit, I was on tour with Downfall of Gaia, and she was visiting Europe to like come to a gig and to come hang out for a few days on my off days. So we were actually in Prague, just like hanging out, trying to sightsee. It was our first vacation together. I was like, oh, never mind, COVID's happening. So we both like fled to Moscow and then back home on the last flight.
Really?
And we were both just in quarantine together for, like a year. And we wrote an album together in quarantine, which included kind of what you're asking about. Like I got back into brushes. I got into like sound design. So I bought a mini Marvin, which is like,
those are cool.
Yeah, like a horror machine, basically. I learned how to record on Logic. So a lot of the early pandemic, I focused on recording and just creating sound with the limited resources I had.
Right.
As the pandemic continued, I was like, I really need a couple of mentors. So I signed up to Mark Guiliana's Patreon. So I've been taking a monthly lesson with Mark Guiliana, one of my favorite drummers of all time. He played on the last David Bowie record, Black
Right.
Star.
Absolutely.
One of New York City's, recent greats.
Yeah.
And so started with Carter McLean, who is the drummer of Lion King on Broadway.
Right. Absolutely.
Also just a dirty, grooving drummer. I mean, his pocket is size of the Grand Canyon. That
Totally.
guy.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's cool, man. I like it that you got to hook up with those two dudes. I've spoken to them both on the podcast, both really cool guys. And yeah, like you said, awesome talents. Definitely a wealth of information between the two of them.
Yeah.
With Downfall of Gaia, that's crazy. I didn't realize that you were over in Europe and managed to get out on one of the last flights to get back to the States. Where are you at with them? Because I believe they're all in Germany, no?
Yeah, they're still in Germany. I'm the only US member. And yeah, basically that tour that got cut in half in that frightening time where everything's like, oh yeah, things are cool. Wait a second. Oh no, the borders are closed. Oh no, there's people in like hazmat suits on the bus.
Oh, God.
That was the experience. I haven't seen the guys obviously since then.
Yeah.
But we are writing another LP. We're in the process of that right now, just sending files via email and demoing, programming demo drums to the songs. And then the rest of that tour that got canceled has been postponed twice and now is supposedly February 2022.
Wow.
But as we speak today, certain countries are closing borders again, and there's a new New York State mask mandate as of yesterday. So
Yeah.
who knows what'll happen, but at the very least, we are writing a new full length of Downfall of Gaia.
Crazy. And then again, that's a process pretty much of obviously both file sharing, but in addition to that, them sort of sequencing out some drums. And then is the idea that you stick pretty closely to that, or is it more just to give them a template to write songs and then you can interpret ultimately what's on there and then do your own thing with it?
Basically, our process the last 3 records and this record coming up now is they'll send me just a song to a click, usually, like files. And usually you can hear kind of the skeleton and where things fit. So I will, most of the time, I would say like 90% of the time, program drums on my end. And sometimes for certain songs, they're like, oh yeah, definitely a blast beat at the minute number 3, or definitely an open doom part for, this part. But they give me a lot of freedom, and, usually I'll just write a bunch of weird stuff and then they'll give me feedback like, yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Oh, that's a little like too out of the box. I think you should just keep blasting here. So that's kind of how our dialogue goes for the writing.
Wow. So then I guess in theory, if that tour happens to go through in March, are you just going to fly out there a few days prior and just go through some blitzkrieg rehearsal sessions, and then it's time to go back out and finish that tour that was started almost 2 years ago?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's the final step. So we'll send demos to save us time and money on flights and rehearsals, of course. And once we're pretty happy with them, then we will meet up. The first album I did with them, we did 2 straight weeks. It was like a 9-to-5 job. That was a lot of fun. Just every day, 8 hours, just worked on it. So we'll do the same thing. I think February, March, the plan at least now is to rehearse, 5 days, 7 days before the tour. And then there's a few days off in the middle, so we might rehearse more. And see how the songs feel in real time in the room, as opposed to just in the digital.
Sure. How much more of the tour did y'all have to go, and or how much? What is the duration looking like at this point? Assuming that it goes through.
It's 2 weeks. I think Monday, Tuesday, maybe Wednesday's off. So it's primarily like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Mostly Germany. There might be 1 gig in the Netherlands. So it's a span of 2 weeks. Yeah. Nice and concise with our friends in Implore. And also our other friends in the band Bait. So it should be cool.
Where do y'all rehearse in Germany? I'm familiar mostly just with some of like the Berlin. We were like stayed in Kreuzberg when we were there. I don't know where that is in relation to where y'all jam.
Yeah, it's always been Berlin or Hamburg.
Cool.
Members now are in Hamburg. One is in, and yeah, we would rehearse in both. So every album's been different. So like we did a record primarily focused in Hamburg. We did a record where we recorded in Leipzig. And then we have rehearsed in Berlin as well. So it just depends on everyone's work schedule and where everyone's at, and if we have any friends or bands that have a rehearsal room we can use, or if we have to rent one at that time.
Absolutely. Well, last time, like I was saying earlier, when we spoke, you were talking about, I think, writing and or sort of working on the record with Number 12 Looks Like You. And you were talking about a tour, touring ultimately with that band. But at the time, like I said, we hadn't spoken about how that went. So how did that tour go? I think I caught y'all when you came through Brooklyn, actually, which was cool. So tell me a little bit about getting out and playing those songs and doing that tour. How'd that go?
Yeah, I think since last we talked, it was after the Dillinger tour, which was a big bucket list item for me.
Yeah.
And after all that, we sat down and really worked for over a year just writing and recording Wild Gods, which is the follow-up album after their long hiatus.
Yeah.
And then we did the 2 tours, East Coast and West Coast. And yeah, I mean, it was great. It was really amazing to reconnect with everybody around the country and to play the old catalog as well as to play some new songs and see how fans interacted to that. And it was also lovely to just play the tour packages we did because they were diverse and just great bands. I mean, we played with Pound and Steak Sauce Mustache and Moontooth, Rolo Tomasi, Crypto Dira, just a lot of great bands, good friends. And yeah, the shows were just packed and fun.
Right. In the break of touring, I've talked to different people that have dealt with it in different ways. I spoke to one drummer who didn't pick up a stick the entire time and just chose to enjoy the break from touring. And I'm kind of curious as to how even like yourself would feel about going back out on and doing the whole touring thing, because it can be such a grind and so exhausting, and the monotony of it can be mind-numbing at times where, it's so much traveling and waiting to play for an hour and a half. So the amount of time that you dedicate to actually being on stage is so minimal compared to the time that you spend all the traveling and waiting, like I said. But are you looking forward to getting back at it, or have you also sort of been like, oh, it's been kind of nice not touring? Or where are you at with that,
Yeah, I definitely value the home life, and personally, it's been a really positive transition. So having a safe and healthy environment at home and safe income streams, all that kind of stuff feels good. But I'll always miss the, touring and the gigs. But I don't think I'll ever revert back to 30 or 50-day tours or DIY tours or, saying yes to every single tour at every single moment. So I'm definitely valuing the alone time at home, being able to focus on my physical health, my mental health, my business, my friends and family. So that's been positive. But that all being said, I mean, I'm not going to stop playing live gigs ever, but I would rather focus on creating more unique and special events at unique locations and making things a little more exclusive, but also, in my opinion, adding value to an event. So, for example, like So Hideous, we would love to play with a string quartet and a brass section and play in larger venues. I mean, we can't do that at a bar or a small venue. We need a stage, we need proper sound, lights. So that's kind of the marker I want to set for myself going forward, is like, all right, well, instead of playing 100 shows a year, I would rather play 5 to 10 really specific, curated, well thought out events that are something memorable.
Yeah. Quality over quantity, the old adage.
Exactly. And I mean, after 2 years, we're not getting any younger. So, I definitely want to pick my moments now as we age.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's always the slippery slope as you age with touring and staying in shape and staying in physical shape so you can play to the level that you want to with the physicality of the instrument that we play. And again, you get older, more responsibilities outside of that, more financial aspects of life, everything. It definitely doesn't get easier. It definitely gets harder. So, and then staying healthy while you're on tour so you can keep that up. If you're just traveling for most of the day, you're not going to be getting that much exercise nor working out. So I don't know if you just bust your ass when you're not doing it to get yourself up to peak physical shape so that, when you're a little bit of a lazy ass during the day outside of just playing the shows and loading equipment, you can stay physically healthy enough to be able to do it.
Yeah, it's definitely a very complicated balance. And, tip of the hat to any musicians out there who are, running and working out every day and touring and playing a concert at 110% physical and mental capacity.
Yeah. Absolutely. So obviously it sounds like you got the Downfall of Gaia tour coming sometime in early 2022. Fingers crossed. Any other projects and or just happenings that you're psyched on and or working forward with presently?
Yeah, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, my partner Lulu and I, we have a new band called This Is Oblivion. We just finished the artwork, the music videos, the vinyl pressing submission. So it's not in hand yet, but we're starting to do the PR campaign. So 2022, I think January, February, we'll have a premiere. And this is something, like I was mentioning before, I've never done before. I mean, all the demos we did in our apartment. So I did one song, just this microphone and a snare with brushes. I did another song just with the mini Marvin and some mallets. I also messed around with Logic, and I would take a regular drum beat and I put a bit crusher on it. I didn't even know what that was during the pandemic. And I put another bit crusher on it. So I started going a little bit deeper into sound design to create something completely new. So I'm super stoked on that. It's a whole different vibe than anything I've released before.
Awesome. Necessity is the mother of invention. Sounds like you ended up going down a minimal pathway due to the world in which you lived.
Absolutely. Had to make the most out of what we could while, being locked up in quarantine.
Hell yeah, man. Right on, Mike. Well, man, it was great catching up with you, dude. Looking forward to hearing some of these projects come out. Congrats on the record label and hopefully getting back out there and do some touring.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Great to see you. Great to catch up. And I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, man. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks to Mike for yapping and rapping. 22 is looking up if I had to guess. At least I'd like to think so. Either way, we'll catch you on the next one. Crash, bang, boom.